Go na sir, go na.
Magandang tanghali Pilipinas. Broadcast from home pa rin po tayo pero patuloy pa rin po ang ating pagganap sa ating katungkulan. Simulan po natin ang briefing ngayon sa pamamagitan ng balitang IATF. Ito po ang ilan sa mga mahalagang punto na napagkasunduan po ng inyong IATF. Unang-una, inaprubahan po ni Presidente Rodrigo Duterte ang rekomendasyon ng IATF na nakasulat sa Resolution 69-A na naglalagay sa Lanao del Sur at Bacolod City sa ilalim ng Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ simula September 8 hanggang September 13 ng taong kasalukuyan. Inaprubahan din po ng IATF sa Resolution 69 ang pag-adapt ng Interim Omnibus Guidelines on Surveillance, Case Finding, and Contact Tracing, Quarantine, or Isolation, and Testing for COVID-19 sa mga sumusunod na identified priority groups para po sa mga returning residents, returning overseas Filipinos, international and domestic tourists, at essential workers in factories and economic zones. Inaprubahan din po ang mga sumusunod na general principles. Una, ang proper clinical assessment na magiging basihan ng quarantine, isolation, testing, discharge, travel at return to work decisions na nakaangkla sa una, sintomas at pangalawa, exposure. Samantala, para malaman ang tamang test para sa tamang dahilan, ikinekonsidera po ang mga sumusunod. Una, yung availability ng test, yung best time sa paggamit ng test, yung turnaround time ng resulta ng test, at test specificity and sensitivity. Ang RT-PCR po ay nananatiling gold standard sa confirmatory testing. Ang paggamit ng antigen test bilang kapalit ng RT-PCR test ay pinapayagan sa kondisyon na ito ay una, pre-boarding requirement ng domestic tourists na asymptomatic bago umalis at magtungo sa kanilang travel destinations. Pangalawa, isang requirement bago makapasok sa place of destination kung sang-ayon sa protocols ng lokal na pamahalaan. Provided na magsasagawa ng confirmatory antigen test 3 hanggang 5 araw pagkatapos. Provided further na antigen testing ay magagamit sa testing ng domestic tourists na naging symptomatic sa place of destination kung wala pong RT-PCR capacity. Kasama rin sa rekomendasyon na ang mga strategiya sa quarantine, isolation at testing ay kailangan may mahigpit na pagsunod sa minimum public health standards. Inadapt din ng IATF ang rekomendasyon ng Economic Development Cluster sa pampublikong transportasyon. Una, pag-adapt at pag-update sa pinakabagong health standards at best practices sa pakikipag-ugnayan sa health experts. Pangalawa, pag-require sa mga ahensya ng pamahalaan, malalaking korporasyon at firms na nakarehistro sa economic zones na magbigay ng shuttle service sa kanilang mga empleyado. Kung hindi ito financially sustainable, pwedeng kumuha ng ibang alternative arrangements tulad ng cost sharing, partial vouchers sa paggamit ng Transport Network Vehicle Services or TNVS. Pangatlo, ipatupad ang service contracting ng PUVs para magkaroon ng partial subsidy ang public transport operations. Mabigyan ng incentives ang mga operators na bumalik at magsilbi sa commuters, maibalik ang hanap buhay ng mga na-displaced na transport workers. Ma-empower ang gobyerno sa pagpapatupad ng health safety at operational standards at pagpupondo sa additional cost ng sanitation protocols. Pang-apat, maglagay ng Interoperable Automatic Fare Collection System or AFCS para sa lahat po ng mga PUVs. Pang-lima, pag-set up at pagpapatupad ng dedicated lanes sa PUVs sa major routes at paglalagay ng mas maraming PUV stops at stations. Pang-anim, paglagay ng protected bicycle lanes at racks, mas malapad na walkways at iba pa. Kaugnay nito, hintayin natin ang Department of Transportation, Department of Trade and Industry at Department of Labor and Employment sa kanilang ilalabas na mga implementing guidelines. Panghuli, inapruban din po ng IATF ang kahilingan ng Region 6, Iligan at Lanao del Sur na isuspinde ang inbound travels ng locally stranded individuals. Nilinaw po ito sa isang statement na 2 weeks ang binigay na moratorium mula hanggang September 7 hanggang September 14. COVID-19 updates naman po tayo. Ito po ang global update ayon sa Johns Hopkins. No? Mahigit 27 million na po or 27,699,112 ang total cases sa buong mundo at meron na po tayong 900,203 global deaths. Ang nangungunang 5 bansa, Estados Unidos pa rin po ang nangunguna with 6,358,247 na cases. Ang death po nila ay 190,727, 3% case fatality rate. Sumunod po ngayon ang India. Naunahan na po ng India ang Brazil. No? At ngayon meron na po silang 4,370,128 cases. Ang deaths po ay 73,890 or 1.7% po ang case fatality rate. Pangatlo po ngayon ang Brazil, 4,162,073 cases, 127,464 deaths, 3.1 case fatality rate. Sumunod po ang Russia, 1,037,526. Meron pong deaths na 18,080, 1.7 case fatality rate. At panglima po ang Peru, meron po silang 696,190. Ang deaths ay 30,123 or 4.3%. Sa Pilipinas po, meron na po tayong 245,143 cases. Ang deaths po natin ay 3,986 or 1.6% po ang ating case fatality rate. As of September 9 po, meron na po tayong 2,722,483 na mga individual na nabigyan po ng RT-PCR or ng RT-PCR tests. No? Ito po ay nanggaling sa 89 licensed RT-PCR laboratories at 29 licensed gene expert laboratories. Meron po tayo ngayon 55,614 na total active cases. At sa mga active cases po, 8.6% ang symptomatic, 88.3% po ang mild, ang severe po ay 1.3% at ang critical ay 1.8%.
That's game. Also game. My career is game.
PlayStation.
Parami naman po ng paramihan gumagaling. Meron na po tayong recoveries equivalent to 185,543. At gaya na aking sinabi, ang death po ay 3,980 plus. Samantala, yun nga po, 3,986 ang total deaths. Makikiramay po kami ulit sa mga naulila. On other matters po, inaprubahan po ng Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, LTFRB, ang pagbubukas ng 10 karagdagang ruta na may kabuuang bilang na 1,000. On other matters po, inaprubahan po ng Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, LTFRB, ang pagbubukas ng 10 karagdagang ruta na may kabuuang bilang na 1,006 authorized jeepney units sa Metro Manila simula kahapon, ika-9 ng Setyembre. Ito po ay mga ruta galing po ng EDSA North hanggang Quezon City Hall, Marcos Avenue, via Tandang Sora, Dapitan hanggang Libertad Street, Divisoria hanggang Retiro po, Divisoria, Sandaan, Libertad, papuntang Washington, Baclaran, papuntang Escolta, Baclaran via Mabini, Blumentritt, papunta po ng Libertad via Quiapo, at Blumentritt, Vito Cruz via El Quinto. Meron na pong kabuuang 16,203 roadworthy traditional public utility jeepneys na pinayagang mag-operate ng LTFRB sa Metro Manila simula noong ika-1 ng Hunyo 2020, so 178 na mga rutas. Dito po natatapos ang ating presentasyon. Wala po tayo ngayong panauhin. So, simulan na po natin ang ating open forum kasama po ang ating mga kasama dito sa Malacanang Press Corps. So, hindi ko po alam kung sino yung unang magtatanong, pero I suppose it's Joyce. Joyce?
Yes po, Secretary.
Yes.
Tama po. Ako po mauna. Yes, good afternoon, Secretary. It's nice to be back po sa ating presidential briefing. Sir, sabi po ng Department of Budget and Management, sa 2021 proposed national budget, wala na pong inilaan doon for social amelioration program or SAP distribution. Why, sir? And with SAP gone, what is the government's plan for poor Filipinos, especially they're still expecting to feel the effects of the pandemic until next year?
Well, nakasaad po dun sa bayanihan 2 na karamihan po ng tulong na ibibigay natin ay para po makapaghanap buhay na yung ating mga kababayan. Magpapautang po tayo, ito po ay galing sa DTI, galing sa DOLE, galing sa DA, at magbibigay po tayo ng mga loan guarantees. In other words, tapos na po yung pagbibigay lamang ng ayuda dahil hindi na po natin plano na magkaroon ng malawakang lockdowns. No? Mula nitong araw na ito, ilulunsad po natin yung bago nating kampanya na pinangalan ng Ingat Buhay para sa Hanap Buhay. So dahil nga po sa matinding epekto ng lockdown, kinakailangan po natin ngayon inganyahin ng lahat na pag-ingatan ng ating mga buhay para po tayo makapaghanap buhay. So ganyan po yung thrust ng Bayanihan 2 at ganyan din po yung thrust ng ating hindi na po natin sila bibigyan ng ayuda dahil ang ating strategiya na nga po ngayon ay localized lockdown.
Alright, Secretary. Pwede din po related to dun sa plight of the poor Filipinos. Sa recent survey po ng SWS, sabi po doon, 2 out of 5 adult Filipinos.
Wala po ang sound.
Secretary, hindi niyo po ako.
Nawawala po ang sound. Go ahead.
Yes po. Sa most recent SWS survey po, Secretary, it appears that 2 out of 5 adult Filipinos, or roughly 40%, are saying that they expect the economy to worsen in the next 12 months. This number of economic pessimists is highest daw po over the last 12 years. Is it a cause of concern for Palas? Lalo na po this survey results na parang it appears tinatanggap na ng mga Pilipino na hindi bubuti ang kanilang buhay sa mga susunod na buwan, and also it somehow reflects their perception of what the government can't do for them.
Kaya nga po, maglulunsad po tayo ng bagong communication plan nga, no? Gaya na aking nasabi, yung Ingat Buhay para sa Hanap Buhay. Dahil ang tanging pamamaraan lang po para tayo po ay makabangon muli ay sa paghahanap buhay at pagbubukas ng ekonomiya. No? So, naintindihan po natin kung bakit pessimistic ang ating mga kababayan, pero ang sinasabi naman po ng mga economic managers, we have hit rock bottom and the only way to go is up. So, kapit-bisig po tayo, hanap buhay po tayo lahat, bubuksan po natin ang ekonomiya, nandiyan pa rin po si COVID, pero kaya po natin pag-ingatan ang ating mga sarili at sama-sama po tayong babangon muli.
Sir, in other words, you're saying na you don't agree with their perception na our lives will worsen in the next 12 months.
Sa tingin ko po, the worst has hit us already. At the worst, of course, was when we had ECQ, dahil sinarado natin ang ekonomiya. Ngayon, nagbubukas na po tayo ng ekonomiya at naghahanda po tayo para kung saan po pwede magkasakit. Dahil nga po nagtatrabaho na tayo, tingin ko po, babangon na po tayo. It will not be as bad. It can only be better.
Last na lang po for me, Secretary, as the former legal counsel of the Laude family, what is your personal take on the President's decision to award, absolute pardon to U.S. Marine Joseph Scott Pemberton? Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara himself admitted that he was surprised with the President's decision. Were you consulted by the President when he was thinking about this, knowing that you were a former legal counsel of the Laude family? And dagdag ko na rin po, some are noticing the differences in your statements and the President's sentiments on the issue.
Wala pong pagkakaiba. Tingin ko po, nagkakaisa pa rin kami ng Presidente sa pagtataguyod ng independenteng foreign policy. Ang tingin ko po, consistent pa rin kaming dalawa ni Presidente na kinakailangan kaibigan ng lahat at walang kalaban ng kahit sino man. Hindi na po ako nasurpresa, sa totoo lang po. Bakit po? Kasi alam ko po na merong mas mataas o mas importanteng national interest na kinakailangan pangalagaan ng Presidente. Bagamat parehong-pareho po kami ng paninindigan pagdating doon sa independensa at pagiging malaya ng Pilipinas. Pero sa panahon po ng pandemic, huwag natin kakalimutan, 4 na bansa lang po ang gumagawa ng vaccine. At napapansin naman natin ang Presidente talagang binibigyan ng emphasis na sana magkaroon na nga ng vaccine. At sa tingin ko naman, itong decision niya kay Presidente, ito'y personal na opinion ko dahil tinanong mo ang aking personal na opinion. No? Ang pagbibigay ng pardon kay Pemberton ay kabahagi ng pagnanais ng Presidente na kapag meron ng vaccine na na-develop, kung sa Amerika man, ay makikinabang din ng Pilipinas. So sa akin po, I'm not surprised dahil panahon ng pandemic at alam ko po ang emphasis ng ating Presidente ay makakuha ng vaccine para sa mga Pilipino. At sa akin po, bagamat tayo po ang tumayong abogado ng pamilyang Laude, kung ang ibig sabihin naman yan ay lahat ng Pilipino ay magkakaroon ng vaccine kung mga Amerikano makadevelop, wala po akong problema dyan.
Thank you, Secretary Roque.
Yes, ang susunod ay si Yusek Roque. Yusek Roque, please.
Yes, good morning, Secretary Roque. Secretary Roque, yung una pong tanong ni Arian Meres na tanong na po ni Joyce Balancio. Ang second tanong naman po niya, you have said that the death of Jennifer Laude is like the symbolic death of Philippine sovereignty. What about the pardon of Pemberton? Where would you liken the decision of the President?
Hindi po nagbabago paninindigan ko na talagang yung pagkamatay ni Jennifer Laude noong 2014 ay symbolic na pagkamatay na ating soberenya. At nagkakaisa po kami ni Presidente, kaya naman ang decision ng Presidente, i-terminate na po ang Visiting Forces Agreement. Panandalian lang pong na-suspend yung termination pero hindi po nagbabago ang decision ni Presidente. Gaya na aking sinabi, ang tingin ko po yung pardon, bagamat ito ay personal na opinion ko, ay para po makinabang ang mga Pilipino sa vaccine laban sa COVID-19 kung mga Amerikano nga makadevelop niyan. So sa akin po, tinatanggap ko po yan bilang realidad na mayroong mga mas importanteng mga interes na tinataguyod ang ating Presidente. And moreover, no, alam niyo yung pardon talaga at saka parole, bilang isang naging profesor ng batas sa UP College of Law ng 15 taon, yan po ang pinaka-presidential of all presidential functions. So wala pong kahit sinong po pwedeng mag-question yan dahil nung tinalaga po natin at hinalal natin ang Pangulong Duterte bilang Presidente, binigyan po natin siya ng kapangyarihan na mag-pardon at parole at yan po ay without subject to any reservations. Nasa sa kanya lang po yan.
Opo. Ang sunod yung tanong, has the IATF discussed or decided on appeals on the deployment ban of nurses and other health workers abroad?
Okay, napag-usapan po yan kasi merong proposal na i-allow, ito po yung proposal lamang, no? I-allow yung mga nurses na naayos ng papel as of August 28. Pero kinakailangan po na pong konsultahin ng Presidente kasi yung decision po na mag-impose muna ng moratorium ay decision po ng Presidente at ayaw naman namin pangunahan po ang ating Presidente.
Thank you, Secretary.
Wait, oo. Well, okay. Ito naman po yung deployment ban. Pero ulitin ko po, yung moratorium sa LSIs doon sa Region 6, Lanao del Sur, yan po ay from September 7 to September 14, kung hindi po ako naging malinaw kanina. Tapos, okay. Thank you po. Yun lang yung ating clarification na.
Kay Trish Tarada na, Secretary.
Hi, Trish.
Hi, good afternoon, Secretary. Sir, follow-up lang po ulit doon sa Pemberton issue. I think you answered already my question. Kung sa tingin niyo nga po ba naka-angkla ito on a bigger reason, on a bigger or a better reason kung ba't po nangyari ito, no? Pero sir, a lot of people also noticed and they're questioning yung timing ng decision ng Pangulo. Some are wondering if there's a link between the announcement of pardon and the conferment of the Order of Sikatuna to former U.S. Ambassador Song Kim. Because I understand, sir, bago po na i-anunsyo itong pardon kay Pemberton, nagkaroon po ng meeting si former U.S. Ambassador at ang Pangulo. Sir, can you tell us more about this for once and for all? May napag-usapan po kaya na posibleng hindi natin lang alam na nagkaroon ng ganitong desisyon po?
Posible po. At ang tingin ko, hindi lang sa pagpupulong yan ni Presidente sa dating Ambahador ng Amerika, kung hindi yung kanyang telephone conversation with President Trump, pero hindi po wala pong kahit sinong private sa telephone conversation na yan. So let us trust the wisdom of the President. Teka lang po, uulitin ko po, ililinawin ko lang, Trish, sandali. Yung moratorium po sa pagbabalik ng LSI ay simula September 7 until September 21, 14 days. Ulitin ko po, yung LSI moratorium po, September 7 to September 21 or a total of 14 days. Okay, Trish, your next question please.
Secretary, although there's a bigger reason, in a way, hindi po ba nababother yung government at how ordinary Filipinos would feel about this, that justice seems to be elusive to the powerless, and also at how other countries would view how we value justice and sovereignty?
Unang-una po, nagtagumpay po kami. Na-convict po namin si Pemberton. Ang binura lang po ng presidente, yung karagdagang parusa kung meron pa. Hindi po binura ng presidente yung desisyon na mamamatay tao po si Pemberton. Ang po pwede pong magbura niyan yung amnesty. Pero ang amnesty po, hindi naman po pwede ibigay lang sa isang tao kasi yung amnesty erases even the fact of the crime. Ang pardon po, yung parusa lang ang binubura. Mamamatay tao pa rin po si Pemberton. Sang-ayon po sa desisyon ng ating hukuman at hindi po yan nagbago. Nakulong din po si Pemberton ng 5 taon. At tapatan lang, bago natin i-apply yung GCPA na tinatawag na isang bagong batas, kung a-apply po natin yung dating batas na indeterminate sentence law, ang totoo lang po niyan, siguro mga ilang buwan lang hanggang 6 months siguro ang po pwede namin ipaglaban na makulong pa si Pemberton. Pero under the indeterminate sentence law po talaga, pag na-meet na niya yung 6 years minimum na incarceration, po pwede na siya, eligible na siya para sa parole. So, naparusahan naman po siya, nagbayad naman po siya ng danyos, mahigit 4 million, at ang tingin ko po, dahil sentensyado siya na siya ay mamamatay tao, pati yung kanyang serbisyo sa hukbong sandatahan ng Amerika, maaapektuhan niya. Sa tingin ko po, nakamit natin ang katarungan, at bagamat mas marami nagsasabi na dapat nga mas matagal ang kulong sa kanya, ang katotohanan naman po, meron nga mas importanteng national interest at tinataguyod ang ating presidente. I'm personally fine with that.
Secretary, doon naman po sa recent study or survey na nilabas po nitong Human Rights Watch group, sabi po nila more people were killed in anti-drugs operation nationwide in 4 months of the COVID-19 pandemic than in a similar period prior to this. Kumbaga, it's 50% higher daw po compared to the previous 4-month period. Your reaction to this, Secretary?
Wala pong reaction dyan dahil hindi ako sigurado kung anong methodology yung ginawa nila. Hindi ko naman po pwedeng tanggapin ang conclusion nang hindi ko nakikita yung pag-aaral, hindi ko po nakikita kung ano yung hakbang na ginawa nila para magkaroon ng conclusion. Pero alalahanin po natin ang Human Rights Watch, ganyan talaga ang trabaho ng mga human rights groups. No? Mag-ingay para yung mga gobyerno pakinggan sila. Pero hindi naman ibig sabihin na lahat ng sinasabi nila ay gospel truths.
Secretary, last question from me po. No? Sa budget briefing po sa Senado kahapon, sabi po ni Senator Panfilo Lacson or si Senator Panfilo Lacson pushed for the removal of more than 400 billion pesos in the budget of DPWH. He said that parts of these funds are either lump sum allocations or some projects are already included in this year's budget. Sabi po ni Senator Lacson, it is unconstitutional. How does the Palace want to go about this? Are you keen on, kumbaga, okay lang po ba na matanggal ito?
Well, hahayaan po namin yan sa Kongreso. Decision po yan ng Kongreso. Pero naninindigan naman po ang Malacanang nang sinumite ang budget, sinundan po namin yung desisyon doon sa kaso na hinain ko, no? Laban doon sa DAP, na kinakailangan po talaga para mawala yung tinatawag na court barrel ay lahat po ng paggagastusan ng gobyerno ay mayroong line item budget na tinatawag. No? So naniniwala po kami, walang lump sum appropriation dyan. Lahat po yan, mayroong proyekto na nakaspecify.
Salamat po, Secretary.
Maraming salamat din, Trish. Balik tayo kay Yusek Roque.
Secretary, tanong mula kay MJ Blanca Flor ng tribune.net.ph. Will the Palace support the proposal to close cemeteries on November 1st and 2 to prevent coronavirus transmission?
Hindi ko pa po alam dahil ako po yung magbubukas ng usapin tungkol dito sa UNDAS, sa IATF. No? Plano ko po talagang simulan na yung proseso ng pag-uusap dyan. No? Titignan po natin kung mayroong mga alternatibo dahil naniniwala naman po ako na importante sa mga Pilipino ang UNDAS. Tayo lang po bigyan sa buong daigdig at ito naman po yung tanging araw na isinantabi natin para alalahanin yung mga mahal natin sa ating buhay. So titingnan po natin kung ano maging aksyon ng IATF at ako mismo po ang aking rekomendasyon, gawin na lang natin na hindi All Saints Day kundi mag-ala tayo siguro ng 4 hanggang 5 araw depending sa family name ng namatay, kung sino po pwedeng pumunta sa mga sementeryo na hindi po lahat magdagsaan sa isang araw lamang. Pero titignan po natin kung ano maging desisyon ng IATF. Yun lang po ang aking mumungkahi. 5 araw na color-coded, kumbaga, ang pagdalaw sa sementeryo. Dahil ako po, importante sa akin yung pagdalaw sa mga mahal ko sa buhay. Bagamat, ako naman, miski hindi naman undas, nagpupunta po sa sementeryo at inaalala yung mga mahal sa buhay na namatay.
Opo. Second question po niya, may we ask daw po for Malacanang's response on the report made by Human Rights Watch that EJ case allegedly linked to the anti-drug campaign increased despite the ongoing lockdowns. The group said police officers killed 50% more people from April to July than the first 4 months of the year.
Yusek, nasagot ko na po yan. Tanong na po yan, Trish.
Ang susunod pong tanong mula kay Chris Jose ng Remate Online. Kumusta na daw po kayo, Secretary Roque? Natuloy po ba daw yung pagpapaswab test nyo ngayon, September 10?
Mamaya pong hapon, diretso po ako sa swab test pagkatapos po nito at malalaman ko po bukas kung ako ay positive or negative.
Okay, Secretary, si Joseph Morong na po.
Hi, Joseph. Next question, Joseph.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon. Sir, yun munang sa Cebu, no? Yung dolomite, they have suspended the quarrying, the mining there. And what's going to be the effect of that decision to the project in Manila Bay?
Well, una rin, respeto po natin yung desisyon ng probinsya ng Cebu. Alam niyo po, may kaso ako mismo na ako po ang nag-argue sa Supreme Court. Ito po yung Boracay Foundation versus sa Province of Aklan. At ang sabi po talaga ng Korte Suprema doon, no, na kinakailangan merong pagpayag ng local government units sa kahit anong aktibidades na magkakaroon ng posibleng magkaroon ng polusyon. No? At dahil tumutol po ang pamahalaang lokal ng Cebu, ginagalang po natin yung pagtutol na yan at alinsunod nga sa desisyon ng Boracay Foundation versus sa Province of Aklan, baka hindi na makakuha ng dolomite itong DNR. Ganun pa man po, no, yung pagtigil po ng supply ay hiwalay po yan sa issue ng legality nung ginagawa ng DNR. Sa tingin ko po, DNR naman ang project proponent dyan at wala nang iba. Lahat po ng provision ng batas ay nasunod, pero susunod din sila doon sa sinasabi ng LG, ng Local Government Code, na kinakailangan yung patuloy na pag-supply ng dolomite ay merong pagpayag ng lokal na pamahalaan. So, ang solution po dito, ang DNR, kinakailangan po makipag-ugnayan sa lokal na pamahalaan ng Cebu, at ang pakiusap naman po ng DNR sa Cebu, ganun din po, no? Kung meron po silang mga concerns, makipag-ugnayan lang kay Secretary Simatu, dahil hindi naman pong ibang tao na si Secretary Simatu, nung nagka-problema po ang siyudad ng Cebu, si Secretary Simatu rin naman po tumulong. Tingin ko po, buksan lang ang lines of communication.
Okay, sir. Kay Pemberton, sir, medyo worrying statement mo, sir, that the pardon is done or was done for a higher interest, and that's the vaccine. So parang, sir, forgive me for being blunt, no? Ito parang si Jennifer Laude, pangpalit ng vaccine, and what's the assurance na if America comes up with a vaccine that we will be a priority?
Unang-una, Joseph, personal kong opinion yan dahil tinanong ako ni Trish kung anong personal opinion ko. Hindi masama ang loob ko dahil sa tingin ko nga, kabahagi ito ng mas malawak at mas importanteng national na interest. Pangalawa, hindi po pampalit si Jennifer Laude dahil nakamit po namin ang katarungan. Napakulong po namin si Pemberton, nagbayad po ng 4 million plus at danyo si Pemberton sa pamilya, at the best case scenario for the family of Laude would have been to delay his release by a couple of months dahil meron na po tayong indeterminate sentence law, which is different from GCPA. Ang pagkakaiba po niya, yung GCPA, miski hindi ka pa nakamit ng minimum sentence mo, pwede ka na mapalaya, applying yung law, no? Applying yung mga credits. Pero under the old law na indeterminate sentence law, kinakailangan ma-meet mo muna yung minimum at afterwards, you will be eligible for parole. So, yun po yung katotohanan. No? Yung katotohanan is, privately, I would have wanted him to serve the maximum that he can, but it would not have been 10 years. In no case could it have been 10 years kasi nag-iisa na siya dun sa kulungan. No? Paano naman siya magkakaroon ng demerit kung siya nag-iisa lang? No? In the same way, na kinu-question din ni Atty. Suarez, paano siya magkakaroon ng merit dahil nag-iisa siya. Pero ito nga yung mga legal controversies na sabi ni Presidente, wag na natin puntahan yan dahil talagang hindi naman namili si Pemberton kung saan siya ikukulong, no? At kung anong legal na basihan. So nakamit po ang katarungan, Joseph. Wala po tayong binayad kahit ano. Ang personal na opinion ko and the reason why I'm comfortable with the decision is kung meron ng vaccine, inaasahan natin na ito mas malapit na samahan sa panig ng Pilipinas at ng Amerika, sa panig ng Pilipinas at China at panig ng Pilipinas at Russia ay magiging dahilan para makinabang tayo sa vaccine na madidevelop nila kung meron na.
Sir, okay, would you agree, sir, that without the VFA, si Pemberton would not have been in the Philippines and the crime would not have happened, yes?
Correct, correct. And that is why I'm thankful for the position of the President to abrogate VFA. Abrogation has just been suspended, but the decision has not been changed.
But how can one believe that the President is really serious about abrogating the VFA if he could pardon somebody who benefits from the VFA?
Well, ang sinasabi nga niya, let's distinguish between Pemberton the person and Pemberton being a military personnel of the United States. Ang legal controversy nga kasi, at ito naman ay linabas hindi lang ng pamilya ni Laude, kundi ng DOJ mismo. Nagsampa po ng motion for reconsideration ng DOJ. Ang mga legal issues sino ba dapat magbigay ng GCPA? Ang hukuman o yung Bureau of Corrections? Kasi sa batas, dapat Bureau of Corrections. Pangalawa, will he be entitled to benefit of yung credit for good conduct habang siya ay nakakulong nung linilitis kasi hindi naman siya hawak ng Pilipinas sa mga panahon na yun. No? Ito yung sinasabi ni Presidente na that's not for Pemberton to choose kung saan siya ikukulong dahil siya naman ay yung nasasakdal. No? At ang legal provision that will govern him was agreed upon by states.
Sir, sa vaccine na lang, how much are we setting aside to procure the vaccine? And pag po ba nakakuha tayo kung anumang bansa yan, ay ito po ba ipamamahagi na libreng bakuna para sa mga Pilipino?
Well, sinagot na po yan ng Presidente at ni Secretary Dominguez. We are aiming to give 20 million Filipinos, all yung ating 4-piece beneficiaries, free of charge the vaccine. Now, that's 20 million Filipinos. You need 2 dosage, so we have allotted public funds for 40 million dosage at $10 each. Ang financing scheme po, pautangin tayo ng Land Bank at DBP at ang mag-aangkat po niyan ay ang PITC.
Alright, sir. Thank you.
Thank you then, Joseph.
Secretary,
Roque?
question from Jenaline Cabiling ng Manila Bulletin. Will the government hold liable any official for the failure to keep a record of Pemberton's behavior while in detention?
Well, that is now moot in academic kasi nga sabi ni Presidente, ito yung issue na hindi natin malalaman kasi nga habang nasa jurisdiction siya ng Amerika nung siya linilitis, hindi natin malalaman kung paano naging conduct niya dyan. No? So tingin ko moot in academic na po yan. Kasi hindi naman natin po pwedeng i-insist o tanungin sa mga Amerikano kung paano nila tinarato si Pemberton dahil wala naman tayong jurisdiction dun sa mga Amerikanong gwardiya niya habang siya linilitis.
Is there still daw po a need to revise the detention rules under Visiting Forces Agreement to prevent a repeat of any unfair treatment or will the government just push through with the VFA termination?
I believe the announcement or the decision of the President is to suspend the termination by 6 months, extendable by another 6 months. That decision to abrogate the VFA remains.
Okay, Secretary si Pia Rañada na po.
Yes, Pia.
Hi, sir.
Just pushing forward on the issue of Pemberton, sir, can you categorically confirm that the President did this, gave the pardon in order for us to get priority in the vaccine? Did you actually hear him say this was?
No, but I was asked about my personal opinion, and that is my personal opinion. I can categorically confirm that is my personal opinion.
Okay, kasi sir, if it was his reason, like as your interpretation of events, this was his reason for giving the pardon, why didn't he give that reason when he explained his pardon to the public? Kasi instead he said it was unfair. So
I do not know. I do not know. But again, the question was how do I feel about it personally, and that's how I feel personally about it.
Okay. And then, sir, just for the President's SALN, because the deadline for submitting SALNs was last August 30, has the President submitted his SALN for 2019?
I believe he has, and I've checked, and there's people responsible for reminding the Office of the President to submit his documents.
So, sir, you believe he has or he has?
Well, I know that there's someone in charge of filing this, but I will check if he's actually filed it. But I believe he has.
Will the palace release the 2019 Salin and the 2018 Salin, which no one has seen yet in public, to reporters or to media?
That's not something that I could decide on. We will inquire from the Office of the Executive Secretary.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Pia. Next, back to Yusef Roque.
Question from Jillian Cortez of Business World. Will the President consider the call of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industries for him to issue an executive order on satellite access liberalization, which will allow internet service providers to set networks even without legislation, especially when internet connectivity is needed the most during this pandemic?
Kinakailangan po na mas malawak ang pag-aaral dyan dahil alam naman natin ang paggamit ng ere ay subject to the grant of a franchise issued by Congress. So sa tingin ko po parang malabo po magawa ng Presidente yan through an executive order because he would be infringing, possibly infringing on the powers of Congress, but we need to study the matter in more detail.
Ang second question po niya, what is the policy statement on some analysts saying President Duterte giving pardon to U.S. Marine Joseph Scott Pemberton shows that he cannot stand up to foreign powers?
Hindi naman po totoo yan dahil nanindigan naman po ang Presidente nung tinerminate po niya yung PFA at sa kanyang pananalita. No? To me, I think you can accuse the President of everything else except for being subservient to any foreign power.
Last question po niya, NEDA Acting Secretary Carl Chua said the economic team has proposed a plan to open up mass transportation further and this was approved by the IATF. Can the IATF expound what this plan is exactly?
Alam niyo po, ang IATF naman nagbibigay ng pulisiya. So in principle, inaprubahan po natin yung mas malawakang transportasyon at dahilan nga po kung bakit ngayon lang ay inanunsyo ko na mas marami na namang mga PUV, mga public utility jeepneys lalo na ang inalaw. Pero yung detalye po niya nasa NTF na po yan dahil yung NTF naman ang nagpapatupad ng mga pulisiya ng IATF. So antayin po natin ang guidelines ng NTF tungkol dito.
Thank you, Secretary. Si Melo Acuña na po, Secretary.
Hi Melo, good morning.
Yeah. Magandang tanghali po, Secretary. Nice to see you. I hope your test would turn out to be negative. But anyway, Chinese Defense Minister Wei Fenghe is in town. Would you know his agenda and his schedule while in Manila?
Well, madami po siyang schedule. No? Sa totoo lang, medyo busy siya, pero most of it are phone conversations. No? So, yun po yung huling nakita ko sa kanyang schedule. Pero dahil naka-quarantine nga po, hindi ako makapunta ng palasyo completely, no? And I will not be allowed until I get my PCR clearance again, no? But I know that there's many meetings ongoing, but not face-to-face meetings po.
Okay. Secretary, this is a bit personal. Were you not kept in the dark when the President decided to grant pardon to Lance Corporal Scott Joseph Pemberton?
Hindi po. I mean, in the first place, the President, in the exercise of the power to grant pardon, is not duty-bound to consult with anyone. So ako naman po, I did not feel that the President had any obligation to me to inform me ahead of time, no? Because that is an absolute discretion of the President to grant pardon. Wala pong issue doon.
Okay. President Duterte said Pemberton was not treated fairly. Would you have specifics as to this kind of statement of the President? Would
Hindi
you have
hindi nga po malinaw among others, no? Kung dapat siya mabigyan ng allowance for good credit habang siya po ay nakadetina nung siya linilitis. That's about a period of 1 year. And the reason is, hindi po kasi siya hawak ng Pilipinas nung panahon na yon. Hawak siya ng mga Amerikano pursuant to the PFA. And we only had joint custody over Pemberton matapos po siya makonvict a year after the crime. No? Isa po yun. May mga issue pa na whether or not he should be entitled to educational credit. Sa Amerika kasi, binibigyan nila ng educational credit kung internet. Sa Pilipinas naman, bawal gumamit ng internet ang mga felons, no? Convicted felons. So ganyan po yung mga controversy na dapat sana maresolba ng judikatura, pero moot and academic na when the President absolute his presidential power to grant pardon.
Yeah. Hindi po kaya pabaon yun kay Ambassador Sung Kim na nag-farewell call kay Pangulong Duterte noong Lunes?
I don't think kinakailangan magbigay ng pabaon si Presidente sa any particular departing ambassador. I think the President is acted in pursuit of a higher national interest, which I have already mentioned as a matter of my personal opinion. At saka, uulitin ko po, pardon is the most presidential of all presidential powers. It is not open to question anywhere by anyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Secretary, question from Virgil Lopez ng GMA News Online. Could you please elaborate on your statement that the pardon extended by the President to U.S. Marine Joseph Scott Pemberton was grounded on a broader national interest?
Wala na po akong i-expound. Sinabi ko na po lahat. That's a personal opinion dahil I was asked by Trish for my personal opinion.
Second question po niya, can we get Palace's reaction to the SWS survey showing 2 in 5 Filipinos see bleaker economy in the next 12 months?
Nasagot ko na po yan, pero ang sabi ko po, huwag po kayong mag-alala mga kababayan dahil binubuksan naman po natin ang ekonomiya. Ang paniniwala ko po, we have hit rock bottom and the only way to go is up.
Question from Angel Roquillo ng RMN. Ano pong reaksyon ng palasyo sa pahayag ng ilang kaanak na mga nakapiit sa New Bilibid prisons na sa pamagitan ng paglaya at paggawad ng absolute pardon kay Pemberton ay magiging daan din ito para makasama na nila ang mahal nila sa buhay na halos dekada-dekada ng nakapiit?
Alam niyo po, even before Pemberton, napakadami pong nag-grant ng probation and parole. Ito po yung mga pinalaya to decongest our jails. Nung tinamaan po tayo ng COVID, talagang naging pulisiya ng DOJ na palayain ang pinakamaraming po pwedeng mapalaya, and the only way to do it is through probation and parole. So, hindi lang po si Pemberton nagbe-benefit ngayon sa panahon ng COVID, marami na po ang nag-benefit dyan.
Susunod po niyang tanong, reaksyon sa sinabi ni detenadong Senator Laila de Lima na hindi siya sang-ayon sa ginagawang beautification ng Manila Bay kung saan binigyan pa niya ng bagong kahulugan ng DNR na Department of Environmental Cosmetics dahil imbis na gampanan ang kanilang tungkulin na i-preserve at protektahan ang kalikasan ay sinisira pa nila at naging beach resort developer pa.
Naintindihan ko po kung hindi sang-ayon si Senator Laila de Lima dahil hindi naman po siya makikinabang dahil siya ay nakakulong, hindi niya makikita yung ganda ng Manila Bay.
Secretary, si Maricel Halili na po.
Yes, Maricel Halili.
Hi sir, magandang hapon po. Sir, during our press briefing during our last press briefing, you mentioned that the proposal to release Pemberton is a bad president. Do you maintain this position even after the decision of the president to grant him absolute pardon?
I still maintain that it was judicial overreach. Kasi the power to grant GCPA is a power not vested in the courts. It's a power vested in the executive. The entire concept of probation and parole is an executive function. It's not a judicial function. So I maintain my position as far as that's concerned. As far as the pardon of the president is concerned, I will repeat it again. It is the most presidential of all presidential functions. It is not subject to question by anyone, anywhere.
Sir, were you able to talk to the president after his announcement on absolute pardon? What did he tell you about it, sir?
I really thought it was broadcasted because I attended that meeting online and we did have a lengthy conversation online. Now, one major paper reported on it extensively. So, ang buong akala ko, na-broadcast yung aming conversation, but apparently one broadcast sheet had a source that summarized yung pag-uusap namin ng Presidente. Pero anyway, ang sa akin po, yung pag-uusap namin ng Presidente, although it was heard by everyone in the room, sa amin dalawa na lang po yun.
Okay. Sir, also, doon po sa public address ng Pangulo nung nakaraan, he also mentioned that this is not the right time for Secretary Duque to resign as Health Secretary because he believes that he is not involved in corruption, but then there is negligence. Ano po yung sinasabi ni President Duterte na negligence on the part of Secretary Duque? Can you tell us, sir?
he's basing his statement on what he has read on the papers. Kasi hindi pa naman i-issue ng Senado talaga yung kanilang Senate report. At the time he mentioned it. No? So, in the same way that Senate President Soto thinks that the Senate report may be able to change the mind of the President, siguro antayin muna natin yung report na yan at antayin natin mabasa ng Presidente and let him make his own decision as a lawyer and as a prosecutor at that, kung dapat bang mabago ang kanyang posisyon o dapat bang mabago yung kanyang pagkakatiwala kay Senator Duque. Antayin po muna natin yan.
Sir, last na lang po. Ano po yung magiging activities ni President Duterte and when will be his next public address?
As usual naman, it will be on Monday. Now, narinig nyo naman sa kanya na he was hoping to go to Davao, pero isang napakataas na dokumento na naman ang kinakailangan niyang pag-aralan, no, at desisyonan. No? So right now po, Monday po, we can be assured that there will be a broadcast. I don't know from where, but from how the President sounded, mukhang hindi siya makakauwi ng Davao.
Maraming salamat, Secretary.
Salamat po, Maricel. Yusef Roque.
Secretary, tanong mula kay Samed Danilla ng Business Mirror. Itig na sagot pero basahin ko na lang po. If may action na po kaya ang IATF sa appeal ng DOLE to extend the exemption period of medical workers from POEA's temporary deployment ban from March 8 to August 31st.
Kukonsultahin po ang Presidente. Alam niyo po, gaya ko, si Secretary Bello naka-isolation din. Kaya pareho po kami wala dun sa meeting last Monday. No? Pero sa tingin ko po, kung both of us test negative, pareho naman kami makaka-attend ng susunod na meeting. And this can be brought to the attention of the President.
Nag-decide na ba daw po ang IATF if it will approve or not the appeal of Metro Manila mayors to defer voter registration?
It's not a decision of the IATF. In fact, the IATF recommends also the deferment of the registration. Kaya lang po, hindi po pwedeng diktahan ng constitutional body dahil ang COMELEC po ay constitutional body. We can only recommend to the COMELEC, but the final decision will be with the COMELEC because it is a constitutional body tasked with the conduct of the voters' registration.
Question from Ace Romero ng Philippine Star. Former Interior Secretary Rafael Alunan called for the release of retired General Jovito Palparan, who was sentenced to life in prison for the kidnapping and detention of 2 student activists in 2006. He said Palparan was doing his duty fighting enemies of the state. He also cited the pardon given to Pemberton. What is Malacanang's take on this?
Well, wala po. He's been sentenced. There's been a factual decision made by the RTC na lumabag po siya sa batas. Pinatawan po siya ng parusa. And unless the President gives him pardon, he has to serve his term, his sentence.
Question from Julie Aurelio. Did President Duterte explicitly say he expects the U.S. to repay his act of pardoning Pemberton by giving Philippines access to its COVID-19 vaccines?
Hindi po. Ulitin ko po, hindi po yan sinabi ni Presidente. Yan ay personal na opinion ko na tinanong po sa akin ni Trish. At yan po, ulitin ko, ay personal na opinion ko. Kaya po wala akong problema doon sa pardon na binigay kay Pemberton. Kung po ako po ay nagkamali, so be it. But ang aking assessment naman po is based on the many pronouncements of the President that I have seen for myself. Inaalagaan po niya na mabuti ang relasyon sa China, sa Russia, and sa Amerika dahil lang talagang palaging iniisip ni Presidente, kinakailangan magkaroon ng vaccine at kinakailangan magkaroon po ng access sa mga Pilipino sa vaccine. Pero sundan ko pong opinion niya.
From Celerina Monte na Manila Shimbon, what's the likelihood that President Duterte will no longer push for the termination of Visiting Forces Agreement? Will you not be surprised if this happens?
Well, tignan po natin kasi nasa first 6 months lang naman po tayo ngayon ng extension of the abrogation. And the President said that it is renewable for another 6 months. So there is 1 year deferment of the abrogation. So tignan po natin kung ano magiging decision after this 1 year period.
May follow-up din po ulit si Julie Aurelio. PRD consulted you on pardoning Pemberton. What was your advice to him? Did he take into consideration your personal sentiment as lawyer for the Laude family?
He did not po, and he's not duty bound to confer with me, but we talked about it after he granted pardon.
Question from Alvin Baltasar o PBS Radio Pilipinas. Any official statement on the transmission ng release order ni Pemberton signed by the President? Bantag earlier confirmed na nasa kanila na yung release order. Kailan po pinirmahan ng Pangulo?
Kahapon lang po yan na-release. A certified true copy was given to the Bureau of Correction because the original copy was given to Pemberton. Ang procedure po is, since there is an ongoing deportation proceedings that Pemberton did not object to, kinakailangan po magtuloy yung deportation proceedings. Pero as to when it will be concluded, it can be 1 day, it can be 1 week, it can be 1 month. Hindi po natin alam yan, but I expect it will be as soon as possible.
Tanong din po ni Ace Romero, follow-up daw po, since you claimed that the death of Jennifer Laude is symbolic of the death of Philippine sovereignty, what can be a higher interest daw than national sovereignty?
Higher interest is saving lives by having vaccine to fight this pandemic.
Question po from Jinky Baticados. Ano daw po ang take ng Palace on pre-registration of national ID on October?
Well, talagang mandato po ng Presidente, pabilisin niyang national ID na yan dahil nakita natin na yung pagdidistribute ng ayuda hindi sana delay kung meron na tayong national ID system. In the same way, magagamit din po yung national ID system para maiwasan yung fraud dyan sa PhilHealth. No? Kasi at least malalaman natin kung buhay o patay yung isang nag-claim ng benefit.
Opo, question, Secretary, I think ito na po yung last question. From Vance Fernandez, after Pemberton was given absolute pardon by the President, why was GCPA suspended?
Well, talaga naman po maraming question dyan. Dahil ang unang question naman po dyan kay Mayor Sanchez. Di ba po, no? Si Mayor Sanchez po ang naging unang dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng kontrobersiya yung GCPA na yan. Pangalawa lang po si Pemberton.
Okay, Secretary, salamat po.
Well, since wala na pong question, maraming salamat sa ating mga kasama sa Malacanang Press Corps at maraming salamat sa inyong panunood. Sa ngalan po ng ating Presidente Rodrigo Roa Duterte, ito po inyong spokesman Roque nagsasabing magtiwala po tayo sa wisdom ng ating Presidente sa kanyang mga desisyon sa mga bagay-bagay na tanging Presidente lang ang po pwedeng magdesisyon. Maraming salamat po, magandang hapon po, and please keep safe.
Matinding kalaban ng COVID.
Ayokong makahawa.
At mahawa.
Pero kailangan ko na magtrabaho.
Kaya di ako magiging pabaya.
Di matigas ang aking ulo.
Iingatan ko ang aking sarili. Para maingatan ang pamilya ko.
Ito ang ambag ko.
Ako.
Ikaw.
Lahat tayo.
Sama-sama nating
Mayaangat ang bayan. Basta't sama-sama tayo.
sa pag-ingat buhay.
Para sa ating hanap buhay.
Mas hugas iwas.